Well, should you have to disclose if you've been vaccinated when you apply for a job? Does it become just another line on your resume? Or is that a bridge too far for you? Interesting poll on Twitter, not scientific, I know, but significant because that's the question being asked by a recruitment agency. Mark Smith is the Group Managing Director of People2people, the recruitment company in question. Mark, good morning.
Good morning.
Why did you start the poll?
Well, it's interesting times. We've been doing some recruitment for essential services, aged care specifically, like nursing assistants, and we were being asked specifically for people who were vaccinated. And so that led us then to the question, well, should job seekers include their vaccination status on their resumes? So we thought we'd go out to the Twitterverse and ask that question last week, and the poll closed on Friday. Interesting results.
Yeah, what did you find?
Well, because we've run this poll now in Australia and in New Zealand, and then I did a bit of a snap poll for our Queensland, because we have an office in Brisbane,
Yep.
and we thought we'd go out to about 5,000 people who had interviewed with us in Brisbane over the last few years. So here are the results. For Australia, then it came out that 55% of people said, yeah, you should put your vaccination status on your resume. But then in New Zealand, it was the reverse. It was 45% said yes and 55 said no. And then when I did the poll, the snap poll out to, and the audience, by the way, for this snap poll was Brisbane-based. So
Yep.
only Brisbane respondents, and they were people who work in an office, basically. So that's the audience.
Yep.
And it was 68% said no, don't put your vaccination status on your resume. So it's really interesting. I mean, I don't know why there's so much variation. The only thing I could think of is that the exposure to lockdowns would be the only thing.
That's it. Maybe in another state the result would be different, and I don't know in what way it might be different, but you never know. So are employers coming to you asking for employees that are vaccinated?
No, at this stage, no. The only exception to that would be essential services, as I mentioned, with aged care. So they're not actually being specific about that. What I can tell you, though, is that the human resources departments and the CEOs of organisations are having lengthy conversations about the legal implications of vaccinations. Now that we've seen SPC and Qantas, and there's a lineup of others who will go shortly, there will be test cases about whether you can, when people lose their job because they're no longer vaccinated. But we did ask a couple of other questions, and I thought I'd share this with you because it's sort of like, it's a little bit of a nuance around the same thing. But we also asked, do you think workplaces should make COVID vaccinations mandatory?
Yep.
And this is against Twitterverse, so you've got to keep it in context. But and 44% said yes.
Okay.
All workplaces. 20% said some workplaces, and then it was about the remainder was no way.
Yep.
But then we also asked, how do you feel about, are you more likely to join a company that has compulsory COVID vaccination? And a solid 63% said yeah.
Okay.
So it's a very mixed up sort of view out there. Any advice I'd have to a job seeker is that, should you include it on there? Well, there's no downside. If you're comfortable with it, and just like you've had exposure to a particular system, or you can drive a car or a forklift or something like that, why not put your vaccination status on there? It will help an employer make a decision.
It's very interesting. Mark Smith from People2people, thank you.
No worries, pal.
There we go. So only a Twitter poll, but it throws up interesting questions. 1300 222 612. I was asking this before. What do you think is fair? Should, when it comes to vaccination and people being able to get employment or access services, does it depend on the type of service it is, on the type of employment it is, such as healthcare, aged care? You might think that's a lot more important to be vaccinated than being a barista, for example, or in retail. 1300 222 612.